Rocco, you mentioned Gonzaga. Their predictive metrics look incredible, and I think everything else about their resume is really, really suspect and pretty thin at this point. Is there any real possibility that a team like Gonzaga could end up not making the NCAA tournament? They just took that loss yesterday at home to St. Mary's, got swept by the Gales.
Yeah, I heard what you said earlier about them. I tend to agree with you. If they got swept this next week, they go to Santa Clara Tuesday night. That would be a season sweep to the Broncos, and then lose to San Francisco Saturday at the Chase Center. They'll finish the year 6-10 in the top two quadrants. That's the tough one to stomach. They do have the two good wins. Baylor's way closer to the bubble than they've ever been right now. They might be in my first four to Dayton tomorrow. That's how things are slipping in Waco. So that win for Gonzaga that looked like a great win all year is starting to get suspect. They've got the road win at San Diego State, but these records are going to be pretty ugly for Gonzaga if they lose both this week. Obviously, Rob, I think in your scenario you said lose their opening WCC tournament game. And I think if they lost all three of those, there's a decent chance they could be out. The resume metrics are already suggesting they should be in the NIT. They're 51 in strength of resume. They're 47 in the WAB, the NCAA's WAB. And that's probably going to drop another 10 spots with more losses. Now, I don't see a world where they're going to – yes, the WAB. Wins above bubble, for those who do not know. It is on the team sheet this year, and it's a very sexy term for us bracketologists.
What does it mean? Explain for people like me who have no idea what it is.
Well, okay, so there's it got introduced several years ago, and those of us like Kevin and I and some of our other friends in the college basketball sicko world, we love the stat because basically what it's trying to say is if every single team in the country played your schedule, this is what record you would need to have to be above the bubble. So there's an algorithm there to say, it cuts off around 43 or 44, where the at-large usually cuts off. And so if you look at it, like Torvik's got a version of it. The NCAA built their version of it, I think, with a similar formula as Torvik, but they're using the net. So if you're getting in the weeds on this stuff and you're looking at both websites, you're seeing a differentiation there. But I think it's important because we run out of ways to compare, right, Jeff? How do you compare a WCC team to an SEC team? If you're comparing Arkansas and Gonzaga. Well, this wins above bubble metric gives us a fair way to treat each other's results, and that's the purpose of it. So if they get stuck, it's just another thing you can turn to kind of break the tie.
I appreciate you doing that because if Sweeney had tried to explain that to me, there's no way in hell I would have understood it. So thank you, Rocco. I totally got it.
I got you.
And anything on Illinois, Rocco? They're slumping right now in a pretty big way. I assume they're still safe to make the field at the moment. Obviously, if you lose out, things maybe get interesting. But where have they fallen in the seed list with this, especially the fashion that they lost yesterday?
Yeah, it certainly didn't help because one of the things Illinois was so strong at was all their performance numbers, but they just got thrashed a couple times recently, obviously yesterday included. So now they don't really have that sparkly, shiny side of their profile. For me, I've penciled them in for now around the 32 mark, which is the last 8 seed. And, they could fall to a 9 by tomorrow once I'm done with the rest of the process, or they might stick around that 8 level. But obviously that's a pretty far drop for a team that just a couple weeks ago we were regularly putting in the 4 to 5 range and even sometimes talking about putting up to a 3. And, I think in terms of them losing so much that they would fall out of the field, I think as long as they can win that home Iowa game, they should be okay. But you lose home Iowa, that's their next game. I think things could get really dicey because it's going to start throwing their records. I think they'll fall maybe one below 500 with that loss in meaningfuls. Then they end with those brutal games at the end. So just don't lose that home game to Iowa because if they do, that's going to make things pretty interesting.
What about UConn, Rocco? UConn has their best wins this year. Baylor doesn't look anywhere near as good as it did at the time. Gonzaga, we just talked about, maybe they're not making the NCAA tournament. At Texas really does not look all that impressive. There's a real chance that all three of those teams are at best 10 seeds, at worst in the NIT. winning at Marquette doesn't look as good as it did a couple of weeks ago. They got that loss to Seton Hall that is going to weigh down their resume. Is there any possibility of this team not making it in? The rest of their schedule is Georgetown at home, at Providence, Marquette at home, Seton Hall at home.
Yeah, I think UConn's going to get in because the top of their resume is excellent, especially compared to the bubble. So you look at the top 5 results in Quad 1A, they're 4-1, today being the only loss. But they got and I get, again, the Gonzaga thing can get really confusing because you're going to see them somewhere in the 30s on our board, which is like 8, 9, 10 seed range. But they're still, the committee's going to look at that as a top 10 win at the top of their resume. Then you add road Marquette, road Creighton, road Texas. I mean, that's those 3 road wins in a row plus the Gonzaga win. That's a lot better than what the bubble has to offer right now. The Baylor win helps, of course. And Xavier could work their way into the field soon, so they've got to win against them too. And I think their record is at a point, like if you look at that meaningful record I keep bringing up, they're sitting right now at 13-9. So even with a tragedy and losing everything from here, you could still select them, right? So I feel like UConn's going to find their way in.